Hello everyone, welcome back to the video of ICB Web Coding. So in this video, we're going to have another JavaScript tutorial. We're going to learn about functions today in this video. So in the last video, we were talking about key pressed functions in p5.js. So in this video, we're going to talk the most important component of programming. I mean, functions are something which you will need in every activity, every algorithm, every pattern, and in every game or any other kind of program. So we need to talk about functions. So talking about function, when we talk, function is something like a task which you need to do. That is a task or a duty. So in the context of programming, a function executes a specific task, rather a specific block of code upon being called. So we will talk about the syntax, the procedure applying the functions in JavaScript, and we'll look at a bunch of examples. So without any delay, let's get started. So if I were to sort of come to the Visual Studio Code, so if I talk about p5.js, which is a library I've kept as a support, so p5.js has built-in functions like function setup and the function draw. We're going to look at these functions very soon. So we're going to look at these functions, but for now, I do not want to talk much about those functions. So I want to look about the syntax of creating your own function. So the syntax of creating a function is write the keyword function, then write the name, then open the parentheses, close the parentheses, and open and close the curly brackets. So you're going to get this is the basic syntax of writing a function, and then all your code, and then all your code is going to come inside this function. So whatever code you're basically writing inside a function is a duty, is basically the task which a function of the given name is going to do. So this is the basic syntax of writing a function. There's not more to sort of remember, but you will sort of get clear about the concept of functions as we look at the sort of examples. So first, let's try to create a simple example of a function which prints hello. So function is, let's say, function is printing. This is my function name. So in this function, I am going to use the console.log, which is a predefined function. So yeah, so I was talking about predefined functions. So functions like console, then splice, then the p5 functions like setup, draw. So these are predefined functions, so you can access them all the time. You do not need to define what these functions are basically going to do. So in the function printing, which is my user defined function, I just want to print hello. Let's just do the simple thing, because I want to talk about calling a function. So simple way to call a function is just write printing, just use a similar keyword, open the parentheses and close the parentheses, and if I run this, so I'm going to see, okay, so there we go. So I will be seeing a hello here. Okay, so for this, yeah, so I will get a hello right here. So this is a very important element. So you have got to know that whenever you just define a function executes the code it has contained only when the function is called, and this is basically, in some words, calling the function. So this is the thing I'm writing in order to call a function. Now p5 has got function setup and function draw. So you do not need to basically just write setup in this way and draw in this way in order to call these functions. So p5.js library already calls these functions inside in some place. I have no idea about this. In some basic place of the p5.js library, this is the library file. If you want to see this is the library. So these functions, function setup and function draw, get called somewhere inside the p5.js library itself. So we do not need to call those by ourselves. So the printing function does this activity. Now, you could repeatedly call a function using the p5 function draw. So a function draw can be used to write printing here, and then if I run this, so this function draw is basically a loop which runs a set of code again and again. So if I were to write the printing function, if I had to call the printing function in function setup, in function draw, then if I run this, you will find that the hello gets printed repeatedly. I mean, you cannot see as usual the number of this. If I were to zoom here, okay, so you can see that this number is basically increasing. It's going to 700. So each frame, each time the function runs, it is calling hello. So I'm going to reset this back. Yeah, so this is a function, a very simple example of a function. Now you might want to ask, why are we going to use functions? We can directly write console.log in draw, but when things get more complex, you might want to use functions. So let us look at some of the advantages which functions provide us. So the first one which goes is they allow us to wait. Okay, so they allow us to call different kinds of arguments, and these arguments can, okay, my spelling is wrong, just a second, arguments. So this is the information that you are giving to the function, and these arguments can help to make the function more generalized. We're going to talk about in detail about arguments very soon. So this is the first advantage, and then those functions which is returned. The return function, returning feature which is provided by a function, also helps us make any code more generalized. So let us look about what arguments are. So let me change this function to multiplication. So this is the function multi. Okay, so the multiplication function which I have wrote as multi should find the product of two numbers which I am providing it. So here comes the thing. So this multi function is going to receive arguments. It is going to receive information from the user at which two numbers to multiply. So just try to understand. So the multiplication function does not know what to multiply. It just knows that if I am providing it two numbers, then it can multiply them. It knows what is the meaning of multiply, but it does not know which numbers to multiply. So I will provide it argument, that is information that multiply a and b. So these are the two numbers that you need, and then so what you need to do, let result, find the result, let result equals a times of b. So the multi function now knows that when two numbers a and b are provided, it will multiply a and b. Now here a and b are the variables, so I will have to provide the values of these variables. So that I will do when I will call the function. So I do not need this p5 functions for now. So this is the function multi. Now if I just call multi a and b, and okay, so for seeing an output, I will have to just say console.log the result. So just show the result what you have calculated. So this is the multiplying operator. So this is the thing I'm using in the function. So if I write multi a and b, and I need to have numbers, and I need to give numbers. So let's multiply 2 and 3. So now my function knows, now the function knows that it has got to multiply a and b, where a is 2. So this is providing the values of the arguments. In the parentheses, you just need to write, while calling the function, you need to give those numbers. So a is 2 and b is 3, and it is going to multiply these two numbers to get probably 6. So if I run this, whoops, I need to shorten this up. Okay, so then I am going to get 6. So this is, I mean, again you might say that what is the use of this multi function? So I could directly write console.log, if I, for explanation, just wait, console.log 4 times 6, and then I'm going to straight away get 24. Yes, I'm going to get 24. So why write so much of function like a multi function to do this? So when things become complex, this is a very simple function. Suppose it is a function which prints a which calculates a number sequence. Let's say a function is sequence. So this sequence will then calculate a lot of things, a lot of complex things, and will then produce a result, and that cannot be done straight away. So let's try to understand with a simple example. Okay, so this is a sort of a number sequence which I have prepared. I've called this ISC formula, I don't know why. So this is a complex situation. So let's say I want to start from 2. If a number, this will be if, so if a number is not a perfect square, I want to check if a number is even, and in that case I want to find the square of the number. If the number is odd, I want to multiply the number by 3 and then add. Then if this number is a perfect square, then I want to check two things. If it is even, the number will be a square root of the number plus 3, and if the number is odd, the number will be number divided by 5. So if I were to do this without using functions, first let's plainly do this and let's see what we get. Let number, so I'm going to start, let's just follow this algorithm, forget everything, follow this algorithm. Let number is 2, it starts at 2. If the number is not a perfect square, that means if number divided by, just a second, where is it divided by? Yeah, if the number divided by the square root of the number, and basically the square root is a p5 function, so let's have the function set up here. The square root is a p5 function, and you can execute p5 functions only inside the function setup. So if the number is a square root divided by the square root of the number is not equals, is not, or it is modulus basically, is not equal 0. So this is how you check if a number is a perfect square or not. So in this case, check two things then. If the number is even, do this. If the number is odd, do this. Then if the number modulus 2 is equals 0, that means the number is even, then number equals number times of the number, right? All done. Now else if the number modulus 2 is equal 1, that means it is odd, then number equals number times 3 plus 1. So do this. Now then if the number is a square, perfect square, so else if number square root modulus square root number is equal 0, that means it is a square root, it is a perfect square, then again check these things. Again do this, wait a second, yeah. So do this again, and if it is an even number, number equals square root of the number plus 3. Okay. And if the number is an even or an odd number, number equals number divided by 5. So this is the whole algorithm which changes the number based on my IC formula. And then let's say I want at the end of everything, where this, yeah, at the end of everything, I just want to console.log my number. Okay, so if I run this, the answer I get is 4. So 2 is not a perfect square, so 2 is even, so it is getting squared, so I'm getting 4. If I were to just start with 3, I would get 10, because that is an odd number, so number equals number times 3. So 3 times 3 equals 9 plus 1, that is 10. So you can see that this is a formula which is working as it should. But when I want to do it for multiple numbers like 2, 3 and 5 all together, then in that case I might want to use a function, because then doing the whole thing for number 1, for writing 3 variables, let's say number 1, number 2 and number 3, and then writing the whole code number 3, and then writing the whole code 3 times will just be a waste of time. So it will be much better if we have a variable called number, and we write a function. So let's call the function render sequence. And then let's add all this code right here. So let's have all this code here. So now the thing is, I can remove all this code, okay, and then the thing is, then I will have to provide the render sequence a number. So then this is an argument. It is getting the information that take a number which will be provided by me, then calculate all this thing to the number, and then console.log that number. Then let's have 3 number variables, number 1, number 2 and number 3. All right, then we could just say that render sequence 3 times, okay, not 4 times, yeah, and then number 1, number 2 and number 3, give them the values 2, that's 2, 3 and 5. So then you can see I get 3 numbers. This is of 2, this is of 4 and this is of 5. So you can see that I am getting this 3 times. And now the beauty of the function render sequence is, now I could run a for loop. Which says that for let I equals 0, I equals 2, I is less than 12, and so I want to do 10 times. The first from 2 to 12, all the 10 numbers. I want to calculate this formula. Then I could write render sequence I. And then the beauty of this is, I would get all the 10 numbers which have been executed with the help of the render sequence formula. Now, it gives you a lot of possibilities. You can do it for 200 numbers using this functions. Now, you could not think of using this formula 200 times for all the numbers without using this kind of a function. So the first advantage of a function, I think I have been able to explain. So let's now talk about the return statement. In the first section of the video, we had a detailed study about what functions are, the syntax, how to call a function, and the applications and advantage of the function in the context of a complex formula. So this return statement in a function is used to return. Return means to provide the user with a value. To understand, let's take the example of p5 functions like the rect function and the map function. So these are 2 p5 functions. The rect function is used to draw a rectangle, and the map function is used to remap a value according to a given range. You can look at the tutorials of these 2 functions in my tutorial playlist. So the rect function is called in this fashion. We write rect, we give the arguments x, y, width and height, and we get a rectangle on our screen. And to call the map function, we write let map, let value equals map some other number from its range, from its start to its end, to a new start and a new end. So these are the 2 arguments of these functions. Can you spot a potential difference, a key difference between these 2 functions? So the first thing is, the function which I'm calling, I am writing let value equals this. So what we do, we generate let value equals 1. So then the number value gets the number 1. So value becomes 1. So when I call value, I mean 1. Then this means that this particular function, this line of code, map numbers from start to end to the new start and new end. So this is, all this thing actually refers to a number. So this is basically a number. That means a whole function finally results as a number. So in other words, the map function returns a number. It returns a number. And all the operations, all the things which happen on the return, on the function, finally return as a single number. This is what it means to return a number. So let's look at the syntax. Let's look at the syntax. So I'm going to use the p5 features for this, like p5 graphic features. So quickly let me create a boilerplate code. Okay, so I've created a p5 boilerplate code which draws a gray canvas on the screen. So let's have a function called getColor. That means I want to color the function. Let's say I want to have a function called getColor. Remove this. So getColor. So in this getColor function, then I want a random background. So I will say let color equals a color which is random 255, random 255, and random 255. Right. So this is a color function which which stores a color value. So once I've done this, let's have the background. Let's have the background to be that color. If I in the function draw, I call the getColor function. GetColor function. Then I'm calling the function. So as we've learned before, this is going to draw a random canvas on the screen. Now you can see this is a gloomy kind of a canvas. So it is better to have this. It is better to have this in the function setup. So this function, the function getColor function, when called, produces a random colored background on the screen. Now, where does the return statement come? So I could do one thing, that without calling the background here, I could say return. That means provide the user this color, which means that after you have calculated what should be the random color, return the color. And then I could say background getColor. If I say, I'm going to get the same result. Now this is something which might make you wonder. So a background function has a function getColor function inside it, a function inside a function. Well, the getColor function which I have written, it stands for this color. So when I have written this getColor, I actually mean the color variable. So this actually stands for the color, and this color means this entire random line of code. That means the return, when the return means that when I call the function ultimately becomes this resultant return variable. Now this is how it works. Now let us look at some of the advantages of having the return statement. Well, first advantage is that it makes the code more and more generalized. Let's say instead of background, I can write fill this random color and then draw an ellipse. At the center of the screen. Of 50 and 50. Let's do this. Then you will see that I get a randomly filled ellipse or a circle in my canvas each time I run the code. So now see, a same function can help you to draw to have a fill. It can also help you have a stroke, that is, in other words, a boundary. Well, my function name was wrong. Why? It was actually correct. You press this, yeah. So you can see, okay, now you can see that the boundary of this circle changes each time I run the code. So the same get color function can be used to have a stroke, have a background, can be used to have a background, and can be used to be fill. So all this color function can just get the required color from this function, and I will not have to have separate functions for fill, background, and stroke. You can straight away understand that this makes a function more generalized. Using the get color function, I could also draw another rectangle at width of a stroke this time. So the first ellipse contains the fill, and then for the rectangle I want the stroke. So get color, write just this, then draw a rectangle at 200, 200, 80 and 40. Let's say let's have an arbitrary value, and let's set the stroke weight to 5, and then you might see that I get two shapes right here each time. And then for the rectangle I want to write no fill so that the things become easier to look at. And then you might see, and let me just separate this a bit at 100 so that you can see it more better. Yeah, so you can see that one rectangle has randomized stroke and one ellipse has a randomized fill value. So these are the possibilities that come to you once you use a return statement. Let's understand one more example using a collide kind of a Boolean return. So for this little example, I have created a code in which I have a circle, this kind of an ellipse, which moves according to my mouse position. Now I want to have a code that when this ellipse crosses this white line, whenever this ellipse crosses this white line, I want to change the background color to red, and this ellipse will have a gray color which will be a bit lighter. So we need to have a function which gets activated when this ellipse crosses this point. So let's have a function called crossing. Let's have a function called crossing. We will have an if condition, and we will have a reference x coordinate. Okay, so if this x is greater than equals, if this x is greater than equals the given the line x, which is 350. So wait, so if this particular x, what am I doing? So if this x crosses this particular line, if this x crosses this particular line, return true. That means if the x is according to this particular crosses this particular x coordinate, then return true. When I'm writing return true, this means it is a condition which has become right. You will understand, just wait. Else, that means the other case, just return false. So this is a function which checks your x coordinate is greater than 350. If yes, it returns true. In other case, it returns false. And now I can say if mouse x, which is my actual x which I'm referring to, if the mouse x, no, if crossing mouse x, I'm referencing the mouse x as the x coordinate. If the mouse x is equal true, that means this is a condition. That means this crossing function basically becomes a condition which results in either a true or a false. So if crossing mouse x is equals true, then the background should be set. The background should be set to, let's say, background should be set to 255.00. Should be set to this, and my fill of the circle, the fill should then become a grayish color of 100, and with the alpha of transparency of 50. So if I cross, you can see, if I cross this, so the background color, now I am not seeing the circle in a better case because I think the fill is getting overlapped. So let's do one thing, that let's store this as a color variable, and let's have it as let color equals color 255 0 and 0, and then this color is changing, color changes to a color which is 150. If I run this now, yes, you can see that when I'm crossing this line, my circle is getting a transparent gray color and the background is turning red. Now I could do this for another object. For another object, I could call that a rectangle as a similar coordinate, and then if crossing is equals false, then I could run this statement, and then for this rectangle, as soon as I cross this point, you can see, as soon as I cross this point, my background changes in the other way, and in this side then the color remains transparent gray and black. So you can see that you can have a single return statement for using conditions in multiple ways. This can make the code more generalized. So I think this is it for the functions and return video. I think I've been able to make you understand about what functions and return statements are. So very soon we will be back again with another JavaScript topic. Till then, thanks for watching and goodbye.